No man can satisfy me, I challenge the Mafia Boss, who never loses. Amanda Okoro moved to Busan for peace, work, and a fresh start. But one bold statement from her lips pulls the attention of the most dangerous man in the entire city, Kim Hyong, the cold and feared Mafia Boss known secretly as the Monster of Busan.
Amanda Okoro felt the cool Busan air as an apology. It slipped between the collar of her light jacket and the warm circle where tears had pressed at her cheeks an hour earlier. The airport was a blur of announcements and rolling suitcases, but when she stepped out onto the curb, the sea smelled clean and the sky looked like someone had finally wiped away the smudge of her life. 2 suitcases, a worn backpack, a head full of playlists and a promise she'd made to herself on the flight. No more second-guessing. No more people who made her shrink. She hailed a cab with fingers that still trembled from the last goodbye. Seoul had been loud in more ways than sound, the kind of loud that enters in paperwork, in late-night messages, in the tiny comments that pile up until you feel hollow. Her last 6 months had been a draft of a life she never wanted. A relationship that drained her colors, a job that used her creativity as a free resource, and a city that asked her to be smaller. Busan was meant to be the undoing of all that. An undoing and a beginning in the same breath. Her new apartment looked out toward the sea. Not a dramatic mansion or a penthouse, but a modest, sunlit studio with a balcony that caught the morning light. The landlord, an old woman who spoke in quick, sympathetic sentences and warmed rice cakes for tenants, told Amanda that peace sometimes needed company. "You'll like Busan," she said, tucking her hair behind her ear as if recommending a good book. Amanda had smiled and left the rice cakes on the counter, because she wasn't ready to be that kind of friend to anyone just yet. Peace, she decided, could be selfish at first. The first week moved like an easy montage. Mornings began with coffee brewed too strong and the small joy of not having to commute. Work hours were disciplined and merciful. As a remote digital marketing strategist, she could plan campaigns from a cafe with sea views or from the corner of her living room where sunlight made patterns on the floor. Her laptop was her lifeline and her anchor. She loved the logic of analytics, the creativity of storytelling through a screen. It was satisfying in a way that felt honest. No meetings about meetings. No one asked her to water down ideas until they tasted like nothing. She booked short walks on the Gwangali beach in the evenings, letting the salt and the neon lights stitch her back together. Still, even peace had its own edges. Loneliness can masquerade as freedom when you first arrive, and Amanda felt the shape of it on certain nights, small and hungry, appearing when the city slept and her apartment hummed. She would make tea and scroll through pictures on her phone, watching a life she'd known go by in a feed that didn't belong to her anymore. At times she caught herself rehearsing conversations she wasn't ready to have. Telling her ex that she'd moved on. Telling her family she was okay. Telling herself that this time she meant it. It was on a bright Friday evening, when the smell of frying fish and the echo of laughter from nearby alleys braided into the ocean breeze, that Amanda decided to go out. Not to impress anyone, not to chase anything. She went because the apartment's 4 walls were starting to feel like an echo chamber. She invited 2 coworkers she hadn't seen in person, and they suggested a rooftop lounge near Houndy. Good music, good people, and the best view of the sea, one told her. Amanda liked the sound of that. A rooftop felt public and safe enough, an in-between place where she could watch other people's lives from a polite distance. The lounge perched like a secret above a narrow street, glass walls catching the last light of sunset. Lanterns glowed and a string of low music threaded between conversations. Amanda stepped inside feeling slightly ridiculous in a dress she'd chosen because it made her feel like the woman who could move through the world without apologies. Her hair framed her face in a soft halo. Her laugh came easier than she expected when her coworkers teased her about being a drama-free newcomer. For an hour she was simply remarkably present, savoring a peach soju, answering questions about SEO strategy with playful sarcasm, listening to stories about Busan as if she were cataloging them for future posts. The group drifted into bolder conversation after the second round of drinks. Someone asked about past relationships, and the questions slid from awkward to intimate with the careless ease of people who had already traded a few confidences for the night. Amanda found herself talking more than she intended, the truth leaning into the open air. How she had left Seoul because the small cruelties had compiled into a refusal she couldn't reconcile with anymore. How she loved remote work because it allowed her to curate her life. How she had an internal list of things she wanted, and exotic as it sounded, satisfaction emotional, intellectual, and otherwise was at the top. She said it like a joke, a half-smile curving at the line of her lips, but the words landed heavier than she thought they would. Busan men can't satisfy me. None of them, she declared in a tone that mixed jest and dare. It floated out into the warm air like a spark. Amanda didn't notice at first that someone had listened. She was laughing about a meme when a shadow slid closer, a figure moving with a confidence that demanded attention without speaking. He was not like the men she'd met so far, not flashy, not loud. He moved like someone who owned silence and used it like currency. He stood a little apart at the edge of the rooftop, back to the city lights, watching the sea and the people. Amanda didn't know his name. She didn't know the word that would one day be used to describe him in whispers. The Monster of Busan. In that moment he was only a silhouette and the only other person who happened to overhear a casual brag that would ripple into everything that came after. The rooftop hummed on. Plates were cleared. Glasses were refilled. Amanda finished her drink, the taste bright and familiar. She told herself, as she had a dozen mornings on the balcony, that this was still the start of something she could shape. She didn't know yet that some starts come with a map already folded into them, instructions written in margins she hadn't read. She slipped her hand into her coat pocket and, for the first time since landing, felt the quiet thrill of being on the edge of something without yet knowing its name. The lounge glowed with warm gold light, neon reflections dancing on glass tables as waves crashed softly against the shore outside. Music floated through the air, smooth, seductive, relaxed. For once, Amanda felt free. No deadlines, no stress, no heartbreaks. Just laughter, cocktails, and co-workers who finally convinced her to unwind. She leaned back in her seat, letting the ocean breeze kiss her skin. Felt good. Too good. Her co-worker nudged her playfully. Amanda, I thought you said you were done with Korean men? Amanda laughed, a carefree sound she hadn't made in months. I am. Please, Busan men. She rolled her eyes dramatically. They can't satisfy me. She raised her glass. None of them. Everyone laughed. Even she laughed. Because to Amanda, it was just a joke, a silly, harmless exaggeration said over cocktails and ocean wind. But the joke didn't stay in their small circle. Traveled. And it landed exactly where it shouldn't have. In the darkest corner of the lounge, separated from the rest by a velvet curtain, Kim Hyong sat half-hidden in the shadows. He wasn't celebrating. He wasn't relaxing. He was observing. He always observed. His fingers stilled around his glass. His head lifted slowly. Cold eyes glinted under the dim light. Sharp jaw clenched once. Someone had just made a bold claim. A claim that dismissed every man in Busan. But it wasn't the words that caught his attention. It was the confidence behind them. The audacity. The spark. The kind of spark that tugged at him, the wrong kind, the dangerous kind. His men beside him exchanged glances. They felt the shift in the air. Hyong wasn't just any man in Busan. He wasn't even just a feared businessman. He was a man with a reputation whispered in dark alleys. A man whose power didn't need to be shown, it was felt. A man who didn't like challenges, because he never lost them. His voice was quiet, almost amused. Who said that? His right-hand man swallowed. Sir, I think her name is Amanda. I heard. Hyong cut in, a slow, dangerous smile forming. The kind of smile that didn't reach his eyes. The kind that meant trouble. His gaze followed her across the room. There she was, laughing, relaxed, completely unaware that her words had shifted the atmosphere in the lounge. Completely unaware that she had captured the attention of the one man she should never provoke. Amanda, he murmured, tasting the name like a challenge. So you think Busan men can't satisfy you? He leaned back, watching her with predator stillness. We'll see. The room didn't know it yet, but a storm had just formed in the shadows. A storm with Amanda's name on it. And this time, her joke had consequences. Real consequence. Because the wolf of Busan had finally looked up, and she was already in his sights. Amanda felt the air shift before she heard his voice. A quiet hush fell over the lounge, not because the music stopped, but because people felt something. Presence. A weight. The kind of energy that made ordinary men straighten their backs and made women glance over their shoulders without knowing why. She didn't notice at first. She just sipped her drink, staring out at the ocean until a deep voice slid behind her like velvet over steel. "You speak boldly." Amanda froze for half a second. Just half. Then she turned with calm confidence, face unreadable, eyes sharp. She expected some random man trying to flirt or prove a point. But what she saw made her breath hitch. A man stood there like he owned the entire building. Tall, sharp jawline, black suit, no tie, the top button undone. Eyes dark and unreadable, the kind of eyes that didn't chase attention, they commanded it. Yet she didn't look away. She tilted her head slightly. "That bothers you?" Her voice was relaxed, almost bored. But her heartbeat? A different story. The man's lips curved just a little, not into a smile or into something else. Amusement? Challenge? Hunger? "No," he said softly. "It interests me." The words sank into her like a needle dipped in fire. Amanda arched her brow. "Oh? And why is that?" He stepped closer. Not enough to touch her. Just enough that she felt the heat of him, the power radiating off him. "Most people don't speak so freely," he said. "Especially in my presence." Amanda scoffed lightly. "And who exactly are you?" His men across the lounge stiffened. People nearby pretended not to stare. But Hyong was intrigued. He hadn't been asked that question in years. People knew who he was. They avoided him, respected him, feared him. But she didn't even blink. "I'm someone," he said slowly, "who doesn't lose challenges." Amanda laughed at a small, disbelieving sound. "Challenge? Sir, I wasn't talking to you." Perhaps she meant to disarm him, to end the conversation, to show she wasn't intimidated. But Hyung stepped even closer, his voice lowering, brushing her skin like an intimate whisper. "No," he said. "You were talking about men in Busan." A pause. "And I happen to be one." Amanda held his gaze. She wasn't scared. Not even a little. But something about him. His stillness. His confidence. His eyes, so dark they felt like they could cut through her. Something about him set her pulse racing. He watched her too, seeing the flicker of the spark she tried to hide. "Tell me," he murmured, eyes dropping briefly to her lips. "Do you always provoke strangers?" "Only the interesting ones," she replied without thinking. The moment the words left her mouth, she regretted them. Because the look he gave her after that, it was dangerous. Slowly, he leaned in, his voice deep enough to tremble through her bones. "Good," he whispered. "Because you've provoked the wrong stranger and now I'm curious." Her breath caught. "What do you want?" she asked quietly. Hyung stood straight, expression unreadable. "For now?" He smirked. "Conversation." He extended his hand slightly, not touching, just offering. "I'm Kim Hyong." She took it. Warm, firm. A handshake that felt like a silent claim. "Amanda Okoro." He repeated her name like he was memorizing it. Like it meant something. "Amanda." His eyes locked onto hers. "I look forward to seeing if your words are true." Her heart thudded. "What words?" He leaned back slightly, gaze burning. "That no man in Busan can satisfy you." She swallowed. And then he added quietly, "I don't like losing." Amanda wasn't sure when the energy around her shifted. Maybe it was the music softening. Maybe it was the warm lights dimming. Maybe it was the way Hyung stood dangerously close, demanding space without raising a hand or raising his voice. Whatever it was, the atmosphere wrapped around them like a magnetic pull. They stood face to face, the ocean breeze brushing between them, her heartbeat pounding in her ears. Words shouldn't have felt this heavy, but they did. "So," he said, voice low and smooth, "you think no man can satisfy you?" Amanda crossed her arms gently, lifting her chin with the same confidence she always carried. "Exactly." Her co-workers froze behind her. Everyone knew who Kim Hyong was except her. Everyone knew he was feared, respected, untouchable except her. And that only made her braver. Hyong's eyes glittered with challenge, the corner of his mouth lifting with slow amusement. He took one step closer, closing the small space between them. Then perhaps, he murmured, you haven't met the right one. Heat rippled through her chest, settling somewhere deeper. She hated that she reacted. She hated that her body noticed him before her mind admitted anything. She held his stare with equal intensity. And you're the right one? Her voice didn't tremble, but something in her did. Hyong smirked, slow, wicked, and dangerous. He leaned in, his breath warm against her ear, his tone barely above a whisper. I'm the man, he said. You shouldn't challenge. The words brushed down her spine like an electric shock. Amanda stepped back slightly, just enough to breathe. I challenge whoever I want. A bold move, a reckless one. But she wasn't the type to bend simply because a man carried power in his presence. Hyung's dark eyes trailed over her face, her lips, her jaw, her confidence analyzing her like she was a puzzle he wanted to solve. Amanda, he said softly, almost like a warning, you're playing with pride. And you're playing with heat, she returned. For a moment, they simply stood there in a silent battle between fire and steel. Hyung's voice dropped even lower. You don't know who I am. She shrugged casually. And you don't know who I am. The corner of his lip curved again. Maybe I should. Her heart kicked hard against her ribs. He wasn't flirting, not exactly. He wasn't trying to impress her. He was simply stating the truth. Promise. Coming storm. For the first time since she moved to Busan since her breakup, her quiet life, her desire for peace, Amanda felt something she wasn't prepared for. A fire. A thrill. A dangerous heat licking at the edges of her control. She wasn't sure if she liked it, but she couldn't walk away. And worst of all, neither could he. Amanda stepped out of the lounge into the cool night air, her heels clicking softly against the marble pathway. She didn't look back. She didn't slow down. She walked with the same bold fire she carried inside, unaware of the eyes that followed her. But Hyung, he didn't move. He remained standing at the floor-to-ceiling window, one hand in his pocket, the other lightly tapping the glass, his mind far from the music and laughter behind him. The city lights reflected his sharp, unreadable. Through the reflection he watched her walk away, her black curls bouncing lightly, her posture proud and unapologetic. Every step she took echoed in him like a challenge he never asked for but suddenly couldn't ignore. Dojin approached carefully, as if stepping too close might break something. Boss, he began, voice quiet. She talked to you like she didn't know who you are. Hyung didn't blink. She didn't. Dojin scratched his head. Most people can't even hold your gaze. She argued with you, challenged you, smirked at you. I mean, what was that? Hyung's jaw tightened, but his eyes stayed fixed on Amanda's retreating figure. That, he said slowly, is why I won't forget her. Dojin's eyes widened. Oh, because those words, coming from Kim Hyong, the monster of Busan, the man who feared nothing and tolerated even less, meant something, something rare, something dangerous. Inside Hyong something stirred, something that had been silent for years, buried, controlled, a force he never unleashed unless absolutely necessary. People joked that he didn't have a heart. Some whispered he traded it for power. Others claimed he was born without one. But none of them knew the truth. Hyung did feel, just not easily, and not for many. But the spark Amanda ignited burned hot. She wasn't intimidated. She wasn't impressed. And she wasn't careful. She had stirred the part of him that reacted to challenge. The same part that built his empire, tore down his enemies, and earned him the name Monster. Not because he was cruel, but because once his interest was awakened, it was unstoppable. She intrigues you? Dojin asked slowly. Hyung finally turned away from the window, his expression dark. She provoked me. Dojin swallowed. And now Hyung adjusted his cufflinks. Calm, composed, but eyes glowing like embers. I'll find out who she is. A chill ran down Dojin's spine, because he knew exactly what that meant. The monster wasn't just awakened. It was focused. Meanwhile, blocks away, Amanda walked home with a mix of confusion and heat swirling in her stomach. She replayed their conversation. His voice, his eyes, trying to shake off the strange pull she felt. She didn't know him. She didn't know what she had triggered. She didn't know the storm quietly forming behind her. But she would, very soon, because Kim Hyong never forgot a challenge. And he never, ever let one walk away. The rumors spread faster than wildfire. Whispers traveled through alleyways, private clubs, gambling dens, and hidden corners of Busan's underworld. The monster is interested in a foreign girl, a black woman bold as fire. She talked to him like she wasn't afraid. She must be important if he didn't kill her on the spot. And in the world Hyong ruled, interest was as dangerous as weakness. A single rumor was enough to place a target on Amanda's back. But Amanda knew none of this. To her, life went on normally. She worked. She planned. She cooked noodles at night while watching dramas. She told herself her encounter with Hyong was a momentary spark. A fluke. Until the night everything changed. That evening, Busan streets were quieter than usual. A thin fog rolled in from the ocean, wrapping the city in a silver haze. Amanda walked home with her bag slung over her shoulder, humming under her breath. But halfway down a dim street, she slowed. Something felt off. A gust of cold air brushed her neck. Then she heard it. Footsteps. Not one person. Not two. Multiple. And then, whispers. Low. Male. Deliberate. Her heart thudded. She turned casually, trying not to look scared. 3 figures stood at the end of the street. 2 more on the opposite side. Their eyes were on her. Predatory. Dark. Her breathing hitched. Was she imagining this? Was Busan unsafe? Or was something else happening? She gripped her phone tighter and took a step forward. The men took a step too. Her pulse spiked. Okay, think, she whispered, speeding up. She tried to appear confident, but panic clawed at her throat. The shadows moved. Someone whistled softly. And then, a hand grabbed her waist. Amanda gasped, twisting, about to scream, until she collided with a hard chest, a familiar scent, and eyes she recognized even in darkness. Hyong. He pulled her against him with one arm, shielding her body, his other hand sliding behind her, securing her as if she were something precious. You're not safe, he growled, his voice deep, vibrating against her skin. She stared up at him, breath shaking, emotions tangled between relief and confusion. What are you doing here? He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he looked over her shoulder, his gaze slicing through the shadows. The men disappeared, vanished, scattered like rats fleeing fire. Only then did he speak. You stay with me tonight. Amanda blinked. What? No, I'm fine, I can. Don't argue, he snapped, stepping in front of her as if expecting an attack at any second. She frowned, partly irritated, partly terrified. Why do you even care? You don't know me. Slowly, he turned to her, his face closed, his eyes burning through the dark. I know enough. He took a step closer, his voice dropping to a dangerous, possessive whisper. And I don't watch what's mine get hunted. Her lips parted. She froze. Yours? She whispered. Hyung's jaw flexed. You caught my attention, he said. And now others noticed. He cupped the side of her face gently. Far too gently for a man like him. And I don't let anyone touch what catches my attention. Amanda swallowed hard. She came to Busan for peace, for a quiet life. But the city had given her something else. A monster who didn't just want her. A monster who would burn the world to keep her safe. The elevator doors slid open with a soft chime, revealing a hallway lined with black marble and soft lights that flickered like candle flames. Amanda had never seen anything like luxury wrapped in danger, beauty carved into silence. Hyong walked ahead of her, silent, composed, every step precise like a man who controlled not just a building but an entire world. She followed, her heartbeat loud in her ears. The hallway opened into a massive penthouse overlooking the ocean. Floor-to-ceiling windows, a glass balcony, dark furniture, sharp lines, expensive art. No warmth, no softness. A place built for power, not comfort. Amanda felt herself shrink a little. The doors closed behind them with a heavy thud, and for the first time, she realized she was truly alone with him. "Why am I here?" she whispered, her voice barely steady. Hyong turned, his presence filling the room even before his words did. "You caught the attention of the wrong people," he said simply. Then he paused. His eyes softened just a fraction. "Because you caught mine first." Amanda looked at him, really looked at him, and something hit her. This man, this cold-faced king of shadows, wasn't just angry or dangerous. He was holding something back, something heavy. He loosened his tie and walked toward the window, staring out at the dark waves below. The moonlight cut across his face, revealing sharp lines, a clenched jaw, and something she hadn't seen before. A flicker, a crack, a wound. She said softly, "You're acting like I matter." "Why?" Hyong didn't answer at first. He exhaled slowly, hands sliding into his pockets as if grounding himself. "When someone becomes connected to me," he said quietly, "they become a target. That's how my world works." Amanda swallowed. "And you brought me here to protect me?" "No," he turned, meeting her eyes. "I brought you here because leaving you alone tonight was not an option." Her chest tightened, though she didn't know why. He walked toward her slowly, each step deliberate. When he stopped in front of her, she looked up at him into eyes that had seen violence, betrayal, and darkness, but right now held something fragile, something almost human. "Amanda," he said, voice low, "I don't get interested in people. Ever." She felt heat crawl up her spine. "Why me?" His jaw shifted. "I don't know yet." He lifted a hand, hesitating, actually hesitating before brushing his fingers across her cheek. The touch was softer than she expected from a man like him. "I've built walls," he murmured.
Episode 1 ends here. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the story, please like, share and subscribe to my channel. Also click on the notification bell, so that you will get notified whenever a new story comes up. You can also go ahead to tell me the country you are watching from, so that I can make a story for you.